Hello and welcome to Gosport Stories, a media space podcast supported by Gosport Borough Council. This is Gosport Stories told by Gosport people. Our aim is to record and share conversations about our community, heritage and culture. My name is Nick Vanderwar. I'm a local marketing consultant and social entrepreneur. And I've set up this media space here. And I am here today to introduce our guest today is Charlie Fletcher. Welcome, Charlie.
Hi. Good after morning.
Good after morning,
Yeah.
whatever time people
it is, yeah.
listening or watching to this podcast. So, Charlie, how would you introduce yourself to someone who's never met you before, but who might want to know a bit about you?
I'm Charlie. I'm not from Gosport, but I've lived in Gosport for about 20 years. Worked and lived. How would I introduce myself? I am a community musician, first and foremost. I would say that's what I was, and a community producer with a background in IT and software development. There you go. That's probably how. That's my two careers, if you want.
So music is, would you say, is your primary passion?
Music is my primary passion. I've been playing music since I was 5 or 6, playing, particularly hitting drums. But started playing guitar when I was 9. Wrote a musical when I was 10. I was obsessed with music for many, many years, and then puberty hits, and I had more important things to do. Yeah.
So I think people might recognise you first and foremost in Gosport from Big Noise Community Samba Band.
Yes.
So tell us a bit about Big Noise by way of introduction.
Big Noise Community Samba Band is exactly what it says in the tin. It's a community samba band, which means it's not necessarily about musical excellence. It's about community, trying to engage as many people in music as you possibly can. There are 2 forms of music that anybody can get involved in. One is singing. Everyone can sing. It doesn't matter whether they don't think they can all sing. And the other one is hitting things in time. And so community music, but particularly percussion, lends itself really well as a sort of, it sort of democratises the music experience, because everyone can get involved. So that was the idea of Big Noise. The small potted history of that is that in 2002 I started playing with Batala, who are a samba band over in Portsmouth. I did that for 5 years, absolutely thoroughly enjoyed it. Loved the community feeling as well, and loved the music, particularly the percussion, because samba has got more than percussion. But
it's that kind of South American beat, isn't it?
I love rhythm. I'm a guitarist, and if somebody said to me what my favourite guitarist, it would probably be Nile Rodgers, because I just love funk, and I'm a bass player as well. So Nile Rodgers, Bernard Edwards, that sort of thing. So I've always been interested in syncopation and rhythm and African music. I spent some time in Gambia, nearly 20 years ago now, studying, just having a look at African music and the culture there and stuff like that. So I love rhythm. And that's so I started with Batla, and the reason that started, I went to Gunwharf and I watched this band playing, and you just go, I can do that, right? Not in a conceited way, just I could probably do that, and I joined. And then 4 years later, I was approached by 2 ex-members of Batla who wanted to start. They had this idea for starting a community samba band in Gosport. Would I like to get involved? And I said, yeah, okay, co-founder, became the musical director. Since then, over 250 people have been involved in the band. The age range, even at the moment, is 17 to 80, which I think is very impressive. Amazing. For a community samba band. So that's that. We've gigged at least 500 times.
That's a really good introduction. So if people might have seen you playing down by the ferry,
yep.
They might have seen you at community events like the bus rally or the vehicle rally in Stokes Bay and things like that.
Yep.
So if you hear that kind of booming samba beat, and you see a group of, it's about 20 to 30 drummers.
We have 50 drummers
50
in the batteria, which means band, and we usually go out with about 25 to 30, and amazing. We do make a lot of noise. There is a very quick anecdote to that somebody, we on Facebook, we did the ferry thing.
Yeah.
Not the bagpipes, but we did a ferry thing. We'll talk about that in a minute. And somebody put on Facebook, everyone's saying, this is really lovely and vibrant, and this person just put, Big Noise ruined my life. Because of the noise.
Asleep.
I was like, I want to put that on our website. Big Noise ruined my life. Anyway.
So that's a really good introduction for people listening or viewing to know who you are. We're going to come back and talk more about in detail about Big Noise later on in the podcast, because I think it's really first I want to get to know you, and I think some of the stories about you. So I've got some amazing questions here that were prepared. So one of these questions is, was there a moment or happy accident that nudged you onto this path of young Charlie getting into music?
Oh, me getting into music, that's a different thing. I mean, getting into happy accident. No, well, I've always been obsessed with music, always. And I got my first guitar when I was 6. No, that's a weird one in terms of, I mean, if you said to me happy accident in terms of some of the things I did around samba, for example, yeah, there were happy accidents. But in terms of music, I remember singing when I was a kid. I just loved music. I suppose the only happy accident, if you want, is when I was 9 years of age. I won this talent competition called Go As You Please. There you go. People in Borough, where I come from, still talk about it, and I'm like 60. But essentially, it was a talent a bit like BGT, if you want, sort of thing. And I went up there, and I was 9, and there was 2 sections. There was like my lot up to 10, and then above, and I did. I sung Long Haired Lover from Liverpool by Jimmy Osmond. And I was brilliant. So I won this, right? And I won the adult section. I won the whole thing, yeah? So then they started, and that was a happy accident. My mum just said, go down and sing. And then for about 3 months after that, I was getting touted around like old folks' homes and places like that, all around sort of Glasgow and that area, touted as this, this little Jimmy Osmond. It's in 1974. So I suppose there was, and it was a bit of a bug when you stand on stage at 9 years of age and you're singing in front of people. There is that performance element that I absolutely adore. I've always said this is hard, but give me 5,000 people and put me on a stage and I can chat all day. So yeah, that was probably the bug, and it just so happened that music was something that allows you to do that performance if you want. So yeah, not a happy accident. And then of course, as you're getting older, I met my best friend who was a guitar player, and I was rubbish and he was great. So there was a little bit of mentoring from him, getting into the jam and the police, changed the way I play guitar, all that sort of stuff. So I think influences rather than happy accidents.
That's awesome. It's really great to think back and set the scene of like that talent competition and the performance. And I guess that's a question about being a performer in general. Is it about the art, or is it about the performance? Is it about the music for you, or is it about performing that music?
That's it. I think performing. I get a buzz out of performing. I don't know why. It just makes me feel good. I don't have nerves over it. You get a lot of performers. It's not that you don't get nervous before you do it, but when you're on there's just something about being in front of an audience that I enjoy. And it's, as I always say to people, it's not me. It's a version of me. And I think, and when I work with a lot of young musicians, and it's trying to get that thing across that when you go on stage, you are you, but you're a version of yourself. And it's really important that you do. There are many, if you want, mental health issues around performers going on stage. You get that moment, you come off, and you get nowhere to go. And that's because you don't know how you need to change your persona when you perform. The same as you do it, same as I'm doing right now. This is me, but a version of me. And I think a lot of performers don't get that. They go on stage and they come off and they still expect that buzz of what they got when they were on stage. And that's a danger. That's quite a slippery slope, shall we say. So I love it, but I do understand it's just acting. It's just a role. And I did a lot of drama when I was a kid, so I like acting.
That's brilliant. And I guess I'm just thinking of our audience now.
Yes.
And I suppose has that taken you through to your approach with community stuff as well? Because I know that workshops are a big thing. So what is it? What would you say to someone who is thinking about getting involved in local music in Gosport, for example, but maybe they don't know where to start, they don't have the confidence or the wherewithal? what can you share? What's the story that you would tell them?
Well, first of all, musicians, like-minded. I was very lucky that I went to places where music was happening. So but essentially, I was about 16, 17 before I didn't decide to become a musician. Right. But before I went, right, I want to be involved in the musical community, shall we say. I was very much drama, I suppose, at the time. And I wanted to be part of the musical community. So then you start seeking out places. And for me, even back then, and we're talking 1981, there was still open mics around. There was still places where bands played. So I would suggest to any young musician, meet other young musicians, right? Jam with other young musicians, other musicians in general. That's where you get inspired. That's where you get influences. That's where bands start to happen. That's where you decide what sort of genres of music you like. So it is really one, practice, right? There's no point in, if you're going to do it well. But it is about seeking out like-minded, and that's hard in school, because depending on school, sometimes it could be a cool thing to do. For example, I ran a vocal group, a charity, for 15 years, and what we found is that a lot of people did singing was very uncool in schools back in, say, 20 years ago. I also had a particular sort of perception of what a choir was. You know what I mean? It was either churchy or it was either musical theatre. So we came along and went, right, let's do, what do you call it, Lady Gaga, let's do Jess Glynn, let's do contemporary stuff. And they came out of the woodwork. But if you ask any of the young people that were in that group, do you tell people in school that you go, nah, I don't say a thing. So, but they had this group of like-minded people that they could come to once a week, and I won't go on about it too much, but we've got a young guy at the moment who's just sold 250,000 streams, been at Glastonbury. He was part of that group. You know what I mean? There's like 19 young people, not young anymore, in Portsmouth, in bands, as session musicians, and they all came out of that environment. You create a space. I used to do a musical youth club where we encouraged young musicians to come in and play in front of their peers, and that's how everything I've done has been through those sort of connections of. So young musicians, if you're out there, just basically do that. Go find other young musicians. Go to New Generation down in Katie's, for example. See the young musicians there. Go to Key West. Go to the open mic. You will meet people, talk to people, and it's just fun.
That's really good, and I think that's really useful to flag up those things, because people might not know about those amazing venues that we have in Gosport. Yeah. So tell us a bit more about your experience of you mentioned New Generation at Katie. So
New Generation is a fantastic night run by a young lady called Maya Simpson, who runs Seen and Heard, which is a sort of it was a community zine. If anyone remembers fanzines back in the day, essentially she created a fanzine that was edited by young people, featured young bands, very, very typical fanzine type of idea if you going back in the day. She started to do that, and then on the back of that she decided, and she was working at Katie's at the time, and she decided that she wanted to do something around young bands, particularly in Gosport. New Generation, easy name, you know, when you're thinking of what you're trying to do. And what's lovely about it, it's once every, I could get this wrong, but it's either second or third Thursday. I think it's the one after the open mic in Key West, so it'll be third Thursday. The bands it's indie. What was lovely about it is you get down there and you see young people who are the age of 16 to 20. They don't drink, so they just buy lemonade and water. So I'm pretty sure Katie's aren't making any money, but what they're doing for young people in Gosport and the music scene is incredible. But they'll get down there. The week that I've been down there, there's like 80 young people crammed into there and outside. So you've got that lovely buzz. Again, musicians meeting musicians, which is great. And the repertoire. I was in there the other week and they were doing a Whitney song. So there was an indie band, an indie punk band doing a Whitney Houston song. And it was just I loved the fact that, and they were doing a Beatles song, and every single bit they were doing Come Together, and every young person in that pub knew the lyrics. And I was quite pleased with that. You know what I mean? Because that's like 68, 69, and they also play their own stuff. The sound's great. The guy who runs it, the guy who does the sound, Sam, he's also been mentored. There's a real connection between Katie's and Key West, which is creating This is my big thing about creating a scene, and it's how you start to create that scene. And I think what New Generation's done, they also do a New Generation Festival once a year at Key West, and this year it was fantastic. The standard is incredible. And the other bit that's really important is giving young musicians professional opportunities. So if you're going to put them on stage, the sound's got to be good, the light's got to be good, they've got to have a decent engineer, they've got to feel like they're being treated as musicians. And they up their game the minute you do something like that. So I think New Generation is the best thing that's happened musically to Gosport in the last couple of years.
So there we go. Big shout out to New Generation at Katie's Vinyl Bar, which is on the High Street.
Yep.
What I love about that story is that completely goes against what a lot of we're told. We're told that Gosport High Street is dead and there's nothing going on. And we're also told that young people are just spending all their time on their phones and not getting out and not being social.
Exactly, yeah.
And this is evidence that that's not true.
No, it's not true. It's not true.
And there is a scene to get involved in if you want to, and going there. And you mentioned Key West Studios as well, which I'm really familiar with because I think it's I absolutely love the open mic there.
One of the best venues in the south.
Yeah, for sure. Let's shout out them as well, because you've touched on that, and a lot of people out there might not have heard of Key West, what they do, where they are. So let's take a moment to tell that story.
So Key West are based in St John's Church on Fortin Road. It's a church, and essentially Louis and Nick, Nick's the main engineer under there, and they took over probably about 3 years ago, maybe a bit longer, I can't remember. So they took over Key West. They built a functional recording studio in the church, which is incredible, and it's very subtle. It still allows for, it's still a performance venue. They've got a main stage. Their lighting rig's incredible. It's properly professional. They do an open mic once, let's get this right, every second Friday of the month. But they also do stuff like beer festivals. They've done weddings. In fact, my sister-in-law got married there last year. But it's an incredible venue. What's really good about what Louis does is he works with young people and he mentors young people. So if you look at a lot of the people, the young lighting engineer, they're about 18 sort of thing. Maya, right? There's loads of people, Paige, young people being nurtured and mentored by professional musicians and people in the industry. Key West also does events, so they're obviously branching out a little bit.
It's an amazing venue, isn't it?
It's
amazing
one of the.
I think is it the big snowball that always sells out?
Yeah,
they have every year. And,
but it's got a lot. They've also got a bit at the front called the Pray Inn, which is a nice little. I like the pun.
The Pray Inn.
Yeah, Pray.
Because it's like the bar area.
The bar area. What were you thinking Pray was?
No, it was the inn. It was the inn element.
All right, the Pray Inn. Yeah. And he's actually used he's used old, what do you call it? Pews, the backs of pews for the bar, and the font is very churchy. Yeah, it's just a really nice idea. And it is a church. You can get married there. There is a church. There's the Haven Youth Group are there. So it is quite a community feel when you go in there. There's some little mini exhibitions that happen there as well. But as a space, it's incredible. And what these guys are doing, all of them in Key West, is just raising the profile of arts and culture in Gosport, which is great.
I think a little factoid, and correct, and I'll apologise if I've got it wrong. I think one of the reasons why it's called Key West is because it used to be located here in Hardway.
It used to be next to the brewery?
Yeah,
Oakleaf Brewery.
Right. I didn't know that as well. So there was a brewery down here in Hardway.
Yeah, but that shut.
Key Lane, isn't it?
Yeah, and that just shut after a pandemic because during that lovely time they used to deliver my beer.
Fallen Acorn.
That's it. Not Oakleaf. Fallen Acorn. Right, got that wrong. Yeah. But and it was there. That's round about where Key West was. And then Louis obviously took a punt on that. He's a busy man. It's doing really well. They've got, they're getting funding. They're getting noticed. And as I say, they're really putting Gosport on the map as far as I'm concerned.
It's brilliant. Yeah, I know. I've been to events there and I've literally walked out of or been at an event and seen bands. I think it was Right Said Fred were literally leaving the recording studio.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to really point out is that, this what Nicholas Bowen, isn't it, has built, is he's there with his studio producing, and you've got this amazing space. So that I find the atmosphere, please do go visit the open mic if you can, because I think that there's an amazing atmosphere and mixture, because it was really linked with some students from St Vincent's around the corner as well. So you would get this massive age range, and people who were coming in and using the recording studio, performing. So it really is an evening of amazing artists, in an amazing location. So that's So shout out to the amazing work that's going on at Key West there, particularly with the young people. Back to you though, Charlie, and your story a little bit. Let's go back to one of our questions. What's a challenge that has taught you something that's useful in hindsight? I can personally say I'm finding things very challenging at the moment with setting up this studio, getting the podcast going and stuff. So there are many bumps in the road. Have you got a story about one for yourself, maybe?
You know, that's a really interesting thing, because we were talking just before about some of the questions that people ask, right? That's a question you get in a job interview, right? Right. Just saying. Because what it does, we've all had experience. I've had too many experiences in my life to suddenly pinpoint and go like that. And I'll be quite blunt, if I'd read the questions prior, I don't know who wrote them. It's a difficult one. I thrive on pressure, so I find it really difficult to pick a moment.
I can rephrase the question in a way that might make it more. What would you say to someone listening, a person in Gosport, who's saying, Charlie, I've tried it, it's too hard, I'm going to give up? Or you say that to me, I'm going, oh God, it's too hard, I can't do this.
Well, I'm a big fan of pushing through stuff. Here's the way I look at it. We've all had little moments in life where it's gone pear-shaped, without doubt. Every single person, it can be professionally, it can be personally, it doesn't matter, or there's a lot of stress. You go through things, you hit projects, and they're a nightmare. But if you just push through, you get to the end, and you get this thing called secondary fun, right? Which is that was really hard, but I really enjoyed it, right? And it's that sort of thing. And I've always been a fan of, you can't let it beat you. Right, it doesn't matter what, and yes, you get financial constraints and you got all that sort of stuff, and you have to compromise and you make choices. But honestly, and it's a silly, my big phrase, and I say it to everybody, whether it be when I'm teaching or whether, is it'll be fine. And that's only because every single pothole, there's a nice popular word at the moment. Every single large pothole that I've hit in my life, I've looked back. And it's usually been a moment which has made a difference, a positive difference in my life. Not that moment, but everything that subsequently happens after it has been more fulfilling, more enlightening, more interesting, So I would say to anyone, when you're struggling, talk to people. Definitely talk to people, because everyone else has got ideas, you know what I mean? So use people, but keep your eye on the prize, and just believe it will happen. And then you look back and you go, that was a lot of fun. Probably wasn't at the time, but you know what I mean? And just keeping that secondary fun thing in there.
I can definitely relate to that, where cameras are going wrong and you start to think, you start to get stressed out about the stuff. And I really hear what you're saying there, and try and live by that as well, which is, I have a phrase that someone who I really inspired by says is, what challenges you changes you.
Yeah.
And so if you want to change, if you want to grow, you're going to need to challenge yourself. You're going to need to put yourself into that thing. And it's not comfortable. It's not easy.
No, it's not supposed to be easy. And I think this idea, it's all the cliches, and learn by your mistakes. Exactly. Yeah, nobody invented anything by getting it right first time. and it's, so all these cliches, unfortunately, are true. But it's hard at a time when it's hitting the fan. And you're going, I can't do this anymore, and you've got too much coming at you. I'd suggest when you get to that, is try and pick the what you call the easy wins, find stuff that make you feel good. At that moment in time, a little thing called ACEs that my partner was telling me about.
Tell us.
That's about achievement, connection, and enjoyment. So these are the things, when things are going wrong, aces, pull out your aces. What have you achieved? What are your connections? Who you chat? What's your network like? And what do you enjoy? And just think of them. And it sort of does get you back, looking back and go, well, that worked. We'll finish this. You'll look at the footage, and when it's all done, it'll be nice and tidy and clean. And you'll go. And I know the hassle we'd had over the last half an hour, but you'll get to the end, and it'll be brilliant. Right? So you got to push through, I think. And so resilience is one of all those lovely words.
Oh yeah, that
sounds
like something my kids learn about at primary school.
Yeah, you can't
primary school all the time.
No, you can't tell kids that stuff. They're not interested in that. It's hard. It is hard to, particularly with young people who are facing all sorts of stuff going on, the big wide world, to sort of say to them, look, it'll be all right. Yeah, it will be all right. And that's a hard thing because there's no proof until they do it.
Yeah, you got to keep the faith. You got to just keep on going.
Keep the faith. We'll go with that. Yeah, it's a Bon Jovi track, so we'll go with that.
It's a song title, isn't it?
Yes, let's not go there.
Maybe I can work in a Desert Island Disc type element to a podcast.
Oh, that would be great.
We can choose a song to play us out, but I don't want to go down the licensing route on that.
No, that was the liked song thing I wanted to do. Everyone's got liked songs on Spotify. You've got a list. Which one do you play the most? And I thought that's quite nice because I checked it the other day and I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Oh, well, tell us then. What is
Donna Jabati, who's a London Gambian, that'll do it, London Gambian kora player who is absolutely fantastic, and hopefully I'm going to see her in Belgium. But yeah, I'm just obsessed. I love West African music, but I'm absolutely obsessed by that. It's Sona Jabati, if you get a chance.
That's awesome. I'm gonna take that as an invitation to share mine as well. I'm listening to a lot of dance music at the moment, which I've always loved, but I think it's something about the energy it's keeping me going and the uplifting nature of it. Mm-hmm. Maybe I spent too much time in my 20s in clubs in central London, and it's about reliving that a little bit for me. And I think there's always something connected with music and nostalgia to me. Yeah. And this section of the podcast is supposed to be you telling stories about your life as well. So I wonder if, Charlie, building on that, there's something that you might, looking back on, there might be an iconic song or a moment you want to share that really you could share that really helps getting to who you are now, particularly thinking of, what we want to talk about in part 2 and the projects that you've got coming up.
Okay, so not Long-Haired Lover from Liverpool by Jimmy Osmond.
Well, no, that was a good story. 9-year, I'm sure everyone at home can picture 9-year-old Charlie on a stage.
Anyway, right. Musically, that would be. Funnily enough, it was samba. I had a really good when I joined the samba band. I had a lovely friend, Angus Sutherland, who was battler, and he did all the designs and stuff like that. And he unfortunately passed away about 10 years ago. But he was a pro. He's an ethnomusic. I'm an ethnomusicologist. I study world music, but he never did it. But his music collection was incredible. And that moment, I remember going to his house one night, and he played me just a couple of things. It was probably Super Rail Band or some other West African thing or some. He was so eclectic with his music, and it just hit me. It just totally hit me about music of other cultures. Right, I wouldn't call it world music. It's quite a contentious thing calling it world music because all music's from the world, but music of other cultures. And I was 38 by that point. I was always into music. When Britpop happened, loved it. I'm very eclectic as a musician. What I like, I'm from classical to jazz to whatever. But that moment, I would suggest that in terms of life-changing and turning point and what I ended up doing musically, that man was the one that made me opened my eyes to a whole world that I knew existed, but not to that sort of detail. And it changed, totally. He changed my life. And from there on, I did what I did.
That's amazing. That's a really good story, Charlie. But you used a big word there that I have to.
Ethnomusicology.
Right. Tell me about your identity as an ethnomusicologist.
Yeah, it's one of them. It's really hard to say. It's a bit like, the National Museum of Royal Navy, NMRN, right?
Well, they've just rebranded.
Yeah, but I worked for them, and it took me ages to learn it, say very quickly, NMRN, right? But it's the same. So ethnomusicology, when I started studying it, I couldn't say that. But essentially, if you look at it, it's a combination of anthropology, sociology, and musicology. So it sounds all ology, but at its heart, it's what makes humans make music, and what are the similarities? And they're huge, you know. What are the similarities in terms of folk music, you know, traditional music? What are the links? Everything's linked. You know what I mean? You can go, whether it be the stuff that we do, yeah, you know, the sort of hip-hop, and if you want that sort of modern contemporary genre we've got right now, if you listen to some of the rhythms, Ed Sheeran sticking an Afrobeat, right? You know, it's all, Afrobeats everywhere. But it's all connected. And the more you open your eyes, ears and eyes, but especially your ears to it, it just influences you. You know, once you see the connections, and again, sounds a bit hippie, but when you do see the connections and you understand that it all comes, that we're all contributing to that thing that's happening musically, it does make you less judgmental, I think, and more appreciative of what's going on in other places and other people and stuff like that. So music's everything.
So what I'm hearing is there's an idea that the music that is made is very much influenced by the place and the people and the culture.
Yes.
As to what's happening. So that here's an angle. Is it over egging the pudding to say in Gosport we have that? I'm particularly thinking as we're recording this podcast, we've got Gosport Marine Festival that I'm involved and honoured to have helped run for a few years. And alongside that, we have the Tales from the Sea Shanty Festival. So are shanties a good example of that as it comes to Gosport as well, do you think?
Shanties are... I like shanty. There's one of my best friends is an international shanty singer, right? Chris Ricketts. He's incredible. He's played here a few times. He's played in Gosport a few times. So I'm a big.
Does he live here in Gosport?
No, he lives in Fairham.
Okay.
Am I allowed to say that? GDPR. But essentially,
I don't think you're giving out his address.
And I'm not going to tell you where he works either. But no, he's an incredible musician. Tours Canada and Poland. I did some work with him at Bay House School a few years ago for High Street Fest, where we took words that we got these young people in Bay House to talk about Gosport and what they liked about it, and then Chris made a shanty out of it, which we then performed on that really rotten, rainy, horrible day that the carnival took place. But in terms of shanty, my issue with shanty is that one, it's very, once you've heard I don't know, not Gosport Nancy, because that'd be a bad one, but you know, there's a repertoire that's involved in shanty, and Gosport, it's almost like, yes, of course it should have shanty because it's a maritime place, and you sort of expect it. What I liked about Tales from the Sea last year, and this isn't disrespectful, I think it's right, it's not shanty. There are shanty groups there, but what was lovely is there was folk groups there. There was lots of other acoustic based, and yes, the genre was folk. And I thought that was really nice. I loved some of the acts. There was only like 4 or 5 acts that I would say were shanty, and I think the rest were a little bit more eclectic and a little bit more folk orientated. I'm obsessed with folk music as well, so that was great. But it's another genre, yes. But I would say it's something you would expect. It's Gosport, right? And we have a shanty which celebrates a lady from Gosport, so it's pretty well. And that's not a shanty. Actually,
Gosport Nancy.
That's not a shanty. No, not really.
That was what I was going to ask you. I think it's always been a thing, and I wouldn't call myself like a muso or anything. But one of the things is, it feels like genres and labels often it's really hard to apply them.
It's harder now, and
it?
It's lovely because the nature of music is to collaborate and to be influenced by other. That's how it happens. It's not plagiarism, it's inspiration. But there's no musician that say they haven't written a song with a thing in their head that might have come from something else, or a vibe, or something that comes.
So, with that label of shanty, so if Gosport Nancy isn't a shanty, why not? Well,
I would say your traditional shanty is a cappella, i.e. it has to be just vocals only. That's your traditional shanties. Traditional shanties were work songs. There are lots of different examples of work songs around the world. Chain gangs, stuff like that in the States where they use work songs. Although, ironically, the song Chain Gang you couldn't actually use as a work song because it's too syncopated. But anyway, yeah, I always find that a bit weird. You can't do
the irony of it.
Yeah, the irony of a song which is syncopated, and you can't have syncopation like that when you're doing. Anyway, but the work song. So I mean, it was essentially you're on the boat and you want to, and it's a thing. It's a practical thing that if everybody's doing things in the time, instead of just go 1, 2, 3, 4 haul, just to make things a little bit more easy, you stick a bit of melody in there. So a lot of these songs it relieves the monotony, and it's efficient in terms of it. So that's shanty. Shanty is a cappella. What we have now, and I love, is because it is very much in the folk camp, that there's a lot of bands and acts now that are bringing in. But we started off with penny whistles and stuff like that, a little bit. But now you've got bass, you've got guitar, you've got bringing in keys. Although it's a bit weird with folk music, but they're fusing. And as somebody, as we'll come on to later on, I'm a huge fan of collaboration and music and sort of fusing different genres. That's where shanty's going now. So shanty and folk are sort of doing that a little bit, which is fine. That's great. Yeah.
Just talking to you is making me realise that myself personally, I really want to redevelop. I used to sing a lot. I used to, as a teenager, mm-hmm. I used to do amateur musicals on stage and stuff. And I really enjoyed that. That was the combination. It was performance, but it was the using your voice, dancing and acting as well. You're really inspiring me to get involved in vocal and stuff like that. I wonder if a shanty group is the way to go, but there's choirs.
There are choirs. I mean, don't get me started on community choirs. I ran one for 15 years.
I will get you started because that's what we're here to tell, Charlie.
Community choir is, how do I put this? I think community choir, they're great. They were community music. And if you're asking me in terms of, because I love community music, I get what it does. It's 50% music, maybe sometimes 30% music. The rest of it is about communication, connection, family, feeling, well-being, all that sort of stuff. Yeah, that's what people do it for. And out of that, you will get the cream will rise to the top. So within any choir or any vocal group, you will get that sort of high standard as well. And what's lovely is that you can be, with singing, as long as you can do 2 notes and you can do them clearly, you can take part in an ensemble, because then you can build that into a harmony and stuff like that. So, but community choirs, I think they suffered a little bit from the perception of rock choir's great, but it's very, I can't say that word. Yeah, it's very, it doesn't swing, it isn't really funky. I can't say what I'm going to say, that I was going to say, because that sounds a little bit, no, I can't do that. No, I can't. But when I started my vocal group, it was very much contemporary. It was very much, we wanted to be backing vocal. The idea of a community choir for us was BVs, so backing vocals. Right? So if you look at, so sort of gospel-esque, but a gospel choir will be a choir up front, whereas our idea was when you listen to BV, backing vocalists, and what they're doing, right, and you can have like 6 or 7 in the back, and you listen to what they're doing, it's amazing, and they're adding to the main soloist sort of thing with all these harmonies, and it's contemporary. And it's got a bit of funk to it and a bit of soul to it. So I think, I think they can be a little bit
bland,
a little bit bland. And so they can be a little bit bland,
boring, uninspiring.
Yeah, but I don't want to. Unexperimental might be a good word.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
It's I can't explain it. It's almost like there's a risk of going there. It's really difficult. It's a confidence thing, to be quite honest. But yeah, community choirs work. Young people are finding them really difficult to access, and that's because of repertoire, right? And to a certain extent, leadership. They don't want the sort of bouncy choir master type thing. They're looking for somebody that they can respect and who they've got a little. They sort of feel. Like, for example, my musical director for the vocal group that I ran, Amber Tremaine. she's probably one of the best soul singers in the country. Never mind Portsmouth. You know, she's been on BGT and all that sort of stuff. Played at Ronnie Scott's. She plays at Ronnie Scott's all the time. She came in and she brought this thing, which is cool. Cool musical director. Could sing the socks off anything, you know. Sounded a bit like Mary J. Blige, sounded like Aretha, sounded like all these incredible, sounded like Adele, could do all that sort of stuff. And the music then came out, the rep was very much like that. So I would say that was what we tried to do with the choirs, to create a group of backing vocalists. And it made it change. It was a game changer at the time.
I get you. I think the big thing for me hearing that is you said, like, the music part of that setup being less than half or less than the thing. And it's funny to hear you're clearly what I'd call a muso there, because you're leading with that musical element. Yeah. Whereas for me, as someone who's really passionate about community, I was almost going to say, like what you said, well, as long as you can hold two notes, you can get involved. I would almost argue it doesn't, for me, the strength of community is people coming together regardless of the performance and whether the music's actually of any standard. The value to me is you bring people together, you get them having fun together. But I suppose it's about balance.
You're missing one of the aces there. You're missing achievement. And we all want to progress a little. You know, you don't go into anything without thinking, it'd be nice to get a little bit. I love doing this. It'd be nice to get a little bit better at this. And what I'm saying there is, if you've got two notes and they're a bit rusty, and you go along to a choir with the right tuition, you can stop these two notes being a bit rusty, and you can so you can get, everyone can improve just by taking part. Repetition makes you better at anything. So I'm not the community is huge, but there is something nice about being able to do it well as well. And I don't think these two things are completely separate from, because one feeds the other, if you think about it. If you do achieve, that brings you together a little bit more. And I'm not talking competition. This is very much about being in the moment and going, this sounds great, and I'm in it, right? And there's nothing better. It's a beautiful feeling when it happens. Whether it doesn't matter if you're playing an instrument or if you're singing, but this sounds great, and I'm right in the middle of it. That's what it's all about, and that's community, as far as I'm concerned.
Sounds great, and that is, I think, an ideal time for us to take a break on that note. When we come back, we're going to talk more about your specific projects that you got going, the messages that you want to give to people. But thank you very much for that so far, Charlie. And let's take that break and we'll be back momentarily. Thank you very much. Okay, we're back for part two. Lots of fun here in the studio at Media Space, changing around camera setups. So if you're listening, check that out on YouTube. And if you're watching, apologies that things might be a bit inconsistent, but we're learning. That's the way we go. And it was a great conversation with our guest, Charlie Fletcher, that this is part of the creative process in part one.
Totally. Yeah. As I said, if you don't make mistakes, you don't get things right eventually.
That's it. So, yeah. That's the lesson I'm learning. Make those mistakes. Don't be scared of making those mistakes, because that's the progress. Now part two, this is an opportunity for you, Charlie, to talk about what's going on. You talked about Big Noise Community Samba Band a bit. I know you from a project, the Gosport Heritage Generator, that's been running recently, but that's soon to come to an end, right? So
that comes to the end. Comes to an end of July. Been really successful. We were talking off camera, and there was definitely a buzz going around culture and heritage in Gosport, and that's lovely to see, because a lot of people dismiss the word heritage, but you know it's basically the DNA of culture. You don't have culture without stories. Right? It's just without things happening beforehand. So it's really nice getting involved in. When I started 3 years ago, I would suggest that. I'm not saying it had a bad name or it's a heritage, but it was considered quite old and fuddy-duddy.
That does sound like heritage to me. It's old things, right?
Old and fuddy. No, it's not. See, heritage isn't about castles. This is a lot of people think this when it comes to heritage or castles. English heritage don't do themselves any favours by having a logo that looks like it's stones from a castle. heritage is not about that. Heritage is about the things that we want to pass on that come. So, for example, musical heritage, right? The way that dictates fashion, that dictates attitudes towards other people. It dictates everything. So, heritage is that thing that we want to pass on and become part of our culture. That's how it works. So, to get involved in it, when I did it, so it was a 3-year program, essentially called the Heritage Generator, and it was there to sort of encourage heritage-based activities.
And this is under the Hampshire Cultural Trust.
The Hampshire Cultural Trust. We're managing it. That's who I've been employed by.
Who here in Gosport have the Gosport Museum and Art Gallery.
So they run GMAG, Gosport Museum and Art Gallery, which everyone used, a lot of people remember as Search, but they run.
And it used to be the grammar school, didn't it?
It was a grammar school in 1922. It was a grammar school.
It's an amazing building with a frieze on top of it, isn't it?
Yes,
opposite.
And the frieze is incredible. The job centre.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. And it's a brilliant space. I mean, the cafe's lovely. There's loads of workshop spaces in there. There's a lovely bit upstairs, which is like if you want themed rooms, which they use for education. But I personally think could be used for other things because the theme is like a rainforest room. Who doesn't want one of them? You know what I mean? And there's a sort of Victorian sort of Sherlock Holmesy type. It's brilliant.
I think a lot of people, if they visited, will remember the stuffed animals, wouldn't they?
They still have lots of dead animals up there.
Dead animals, you call it. Taxidermy, that's
the dead animal room, as I like to call it. Yeah, taxidermy room. Which surprisingly, for because they do a lot of education stuff up there for junior schools and infant schools, they love it. Kids love it. I mean, I'm pretty sure they don't go, that's a dead fox. But, they don't mind the taxidermy, which is quite nice. And it's a very, as I say, GMAG is a very exciting place with a lot more potential. And I'm not trying to advertise it it's just a lovely building that should be used by people a lot more. And there is potential. So if you do, want to, you contact Brian and GMAG and come in and have a look because it is a really proper space.
They've got an amazing. You said about the rooms upstairs for workshops. They've got an amazing playroom for the youngsters and parents to go in. That's free to use.
They've got an official accredited museum gallery. So that is a proper standard.
So that's where they can bring work. You can
touring exhibitions, national touring exhibitions. They do. And at the moment, they've got one called Shoes, which is great, and it's got like X-rays of shoes. It's just an interesting.
My favourite was when the longest yarn came, which is where they've knitted and crocheted scenes from D-Day and stuff.
Funnily enough, that's coming back in August. Although I thought your favourite would have been my exhibition, but there you go. That's absolutely fine.
Tell me about your exhibition.
No, I can't be bothered. Right. We did an exhibition called Echoes of Applause, part of the Heritage Generator programme, where we were looking at entertainment in Gosport, specifically sort of a wide range of entertainment. And as a musician, I I did focus a little bit on that musical heritage of Gosport. And that's where, ridiculous, Thorngate Halls. I've mentioned David Bowie, Rod Stewart, Cream, right? Just 3 people, all plus Manfred Mann, obviously, and Mike Hugg from Manfred Mann, who comes from Gosport, etc., etc. It just we started to focus in on the musical heritage. So Echoes of Applause was an exhibition that looked at film, theatre, local theatre, such as the Villagers, 17th century Villagers, who they're an open air Shakespeare company. Incredible, been going for like 30 years. Gosport usually do their stuff in 17th century Village, and they do outdoor Shakespeare, and it's really good. So again, if people, checking these things, these are things that are happening in Gosport that don't people know about.
So can you still access things to do with Echoes of Applause?
You can, right. So, there's 2 things. There's one I've got, and if anyone's interested, actually, I've got a lot of panels from. We did a condensed, if you want, touring version of the panels of all the different, like the Gosport festivals and posters and stuff like that. So we do have panels which tell the story of Echoes of Applause, that if anyone wants to put in there, we're looking, quite happy for people to have it. Well, Thorngate are interested, so that's fine. But if anyone else, that would be really nice. We did a documentary, and that was incredible. That was... it was to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Gosport festivals.
Gosport
which happened.
festivals.
So Gosport festivals, the 1990 to 1996, the Gosport Festival in Walpole Park. They had a big top. They had some of the biggest artists, world music artists in the world. They had B.B. King twice. Geldof played. Paul Young played. I know I'm talking to an audience here that are a lot older than maybe some of the other people listen to, but these were like top names of the time. Gosport was on the map. At the same time in the 90s, if you looked at the local music scene and you looked at the amount of bands playing in pubs, hundreds. I mean, there was I think it was something like 900 gigs over 5. It was ridiculous because the festival was there and people were going, okay, if the festival's there, there's a musical scene in Gosport, and they started to. So we did.
Is that documentary? Is that on YouTube?
That's on YouTube, and It's called Echoes of Applause. And we interviewed Spike Edney, who Spike is Queen's musical director. Played at Live Aid, stuff like that. Mike was in a band called Smiling Hard, which was based in Gosport in the 60s, and he just, it was an incredible interview. I mean, I didn't get to interview the man, a friend of ours did, but that sort of brought the whole thing together. So Echoes of Applause on YouTube, have a look. In terms of, so the generator's a little bit of that. We also did a training program and a skills program where we didn't do anything, but we did a bit of video thing. I think, we did one.
Yeah, I did film school in a day.
You did film school in a day. Yeah, so the idea was
It's on YouTube as well.
Yeah. The idea was that creatives and freelancers, in this sector, if you want, would learn maybe some of the stuff they didn't want to know about. GDPR would be an example, but you need to know about it. And actually the workshop was funny as you like. But, things like that, community engagement, digital marketing, but also some practical skills around event planning, filming, stuff like that. So the whole range. We did 21 workshops over 18 months. And I think it was something like 200 attendances. So it was great. And on the back of that...
It's inspiring stuff. I want to do workshops here at the Media Space. Keep your eyes peeled for that. Upcoming workshops. Come and learn some practical skills at Media Space. So that was part of the Heritage Generator.
That's part of the Heritage Generator.
And that project is coming to an end.
It's coming to an end, and it finishes at the end of August. And the last thing we're doing is we're doing a shall we say, a redisplay of the gallery in the museum. And the exciting bit for me is that we've sort of identified 8 individuals, notable individuals, shall we say, who have a connection with Gosport. They were either born here or lived here, who have gone on to do incredible things. Like, we've got an Oscar-winning special effects guy. We've got a director of movies he directed a movie with Vincent Price and Peter Cushing. We've got an Italian revolutionary, or a revolutionary who went to Italy, but from Gosport. We've got Mike Hogg from Manfred Mann, and the idea is we're going to celebrate these people in a sort of essentially a wall of fame. So that's happening now, and we should be ready to install. It should be done by June the 18th. There's a reason for that, because I've got an opening, so I've got a deadline. So
deadlines are good.
Deadlines are great. Love deadlines.
I loved it. One of my favourite quotes is one of my favourite authors, Douglas Adams, where he talks about deadlines. He always loved deadlines. He loved the whooshing noise they made as they passed by.
Yeah. Mr. Adams is I think we're both fans of him.
I want to get a picture of him up here.
I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
To inspire me.
Yeah, he was very ahead of his time. I mean, if you look at tablets, it's essentially the book.
He was a technologist. Yeah, he was a real technologist, and and Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Anyway, we digress.
We did.
Back to you and your projects, Charlie.
Right. So my project, the main project at the moment that I'm working on, because I sort of finish in the museum. I finished with Hampshire Cultural Trust in August, and as a freelancer, you've got to look at what you want to do. Interestingly enough, the Samba Band is coming up for its 20th anniversary, which I'd never have thought of that it would be the year 20 years later. You don't, do you?
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's coming up. So September 2027. And I'm, at the moment, the project is, what is the project going to be? So
you've got the 20th anniversary.
We know that's happening.
And you want to celebrate it next year.
So the project is, what are we going to do? So obviously I'm a big fan of sort of fusing not just genres of music, but also, for example, samba is a very community, it's a multi-arts, if you want, sort of discipline. So you get art, you get fashion, you get collaborations between different, types of instrument ensembles. You get food. It's all that. So, and there's a few acts that I've been looking at lately who essentially they do a thing. It's called a banda show, BANDA. And a banda show is essentially a celebration of the band, but you bring in other musicians, other ensembles. So it's a celebration of... I didn't do that. I just hit the microphone. It's a celebration of Big Noise, but what I want to do is create something. Samba will be the thread, but then I want to look at whether it be dance troops, cheer troops, brass bands, pipe bands.
So it's an event.
Yeah, so the first part of the project is going out there, testing some of the ideas, things that work. I mean, for example, just as you know, we did a pipe, and you can check it on YouTube. It's great. Last year we did a little jam with a pipe band down at Fulton Gardens, the Ferry Gardens, that bit.
Down by the Gosport Ferry.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. And I'm a big fan of pushing it a little bit. So next week I've got a DJ coming to... 2 weeks time I've got a DJ coming to the Samba Band to see whether we can do stuff like that. So I love fusion. I love that idea of mixing genres and stuff like that. So this is a next step. So this isn't just mixing musical genres. How can we bring in dance? How can we bring in visuals? How can we bring in the community? And so the celebration will be a celebration of Big Noise with a samba thread through it. But what it will also do is create collaborations, new connections between musicians and artists and stuff like that. So the legacy will be that, you know what it's like. You do a project, people get together, they start talking to each other, and they carry on the work that you've already done. So this is more than just a celebration for Big Noise. This is how can we take that whole ethos of samba, which is very community. I mean, just so you know, in terms of and when you go to Brazil, which I've not been to because I went to Africa, but in Bahia, all the samba Bahia's in Salvador. Salvador's in Bahia. If you look in Salvador, they do a lot of the samba bands are community collectives. So essentially, they play samba. Any money they make, they put into like schools, they put into social housing, they put into feeding. It's a proper community thing. Everybody. So and also they collaborate artistically and creatively. So it's a whole thing. It's not just drumming. It's drumming, it's instruments, it's dance, it's food, it's fashion, it's everything. And I would like to try and create a show that sort of demonstrates that, but then also there's a legacy where people start to communicate with each other artistically and creatively. So that's the plan. And it's going to be the other option was to do an encontro, which is a different thing. That's bringing in lots and lots of samba bands to do workshops and performances. So at the moment, the project is I'm actually applying for a grant at the moment. I'm writing a grant at the moment to do that little bit of testing and that work that needs to be done, that consultation. What are we going to have? And then at the end of that, hopefully, I'll have a framework and a plan for September 2027, which will be huge, hopefully. There are certain venues that I'd like to use. I don't know whether if I can mention that. Well, it doesn't matter because I've not got them yet. But if I could, Key West would obviously be up there. Thorngate would be up there. I like Broderick as well because Broderick's actually got quite a history. Yeah, now that used to get used by a lot of bands for rehearsals. So there's a connection there. And then Brockhurst, which I think is one of the best places in the world to do Fort Brockhurst. It's incredible.
That was used for festivals back in the 90s, wasn't it?
James Brown played at Fort Brockhurst.
Wow, yeah. There you go.
I think Take That played at Bay House School, which is pretty cool anyway, when you think about it. But what's lovely about Fort Brockhurst is it is contained. It has got 8-foot thick walls or whatever it is. So in terms of musically, you can sort of keep it in there without disturbing too many people. It's a huge space, you know what I mean? And it's what could we do? Can you imagine having 500 drummers in there? That'd be a laugh, wouldn't it? So my project is, what is the project going to be? We are celebrating. It will involve combined arts, how that pans out and this is something about for any creatives out there when you're coming up with ideas. Sometimes you do need a little bit of time, a little bit of thinking time, and a little bit of financial support to allow you to have that thinking time. And it's something that funders are doing a little bit better now because because you need to develop the idea from a, you've got some sort of little seed and you think, how do you do that?
So take us through, obviously you've got this experience and you've learned and you've taught other people this stuff through projects and stuff. Take us through that, what you're doing, the approach, because it might be news to listeners, viewers at home, that they've got an idea. They might be listening to your idea and thinking, well, I've got a great idea for something to do in Gosport. Where are you? Who are you applying for money to develop this idea to?
There's a couple of caveats behind these sort of things, like anything. So if you're a creative, it's a bit track record for a start. So if you're going to apply, for anything creative or cultural, you start off at the low end. So for example, Gosport community grants. GBC do things called community grants. They also do...
That's the council.
GBC, Gosport Borough Council. They also do events. They put in an events grant.
Which is how this project got funded.
There you go.
I went and got a grant from Gosport Borough Council.
So you might start there, but there's also other options. For example, Hampshire Cultural Trust. You've got Culture Connect's website. You can go on there, and it's about linking up with people. I've got an idea. What do you think? There are cultural development managers around where you can book sessions and say, look, I've got this idea, what do you want to do? So
we probably should have flagged that up when we mentioned the trust before. So yeah, just so everyone knows, there's this project, Culture Connects.
Yep.
So if you Google Culture Connects and perhaps Gosport, will help you get
It's
there
essentially
as well.
a hub for creators within Hampshire. So you can put up what you do, you can put up an opportunity, stuff like that. But it's focused on practitioners and facilitators and people that want to be, so that's great. But in terms of getting the funding, like anything, you have to prove yourself. So if you've got an idea, you either go and find somebody who's already got a relationship with the funders, and then it's a partnership type thing. So I want to do this, can you help? And they might be the person that can sort of nurture that bid, and then you work in partnership with them. But organisations such as NLHF and the Arts Council, they're going to want to see...
NLHF?
NLHF is the National Lottery Heritage Fund,
which
is what Gosport Heritage Generator was funded by.
That's lottery money that's earmarked for charities.
Lottery money is earmarked for arts and culture.
For arts and culture,
yeah. It's something that David Attenborough's brother did. What's his name?
Dickie
Attenborough.
Attenborough.
He needs to be given a lot of credit for when the lottery came in. He badgered. It would have been, that was 94. No, it was 82. When was? Come on, somebody tell me when the lottery.
It's not live, Charlie. So we can't ask the audience.
It's probably true. It's probably 92. So probably John Major, but he badgered government to say, can we use some of the funding that you get from the National Lottery and put it into arts? Game changer. Absolute game changer. Changed the way arts. So big thanks to Dickie Attenborough for doing that.
Isn't there a flip side of that coin, though, which I'm just going to challenge you with? That then meant that the public authorities are like, well, we don't need to fund stuff anymore.
Yes, there is. Yeah, you're right. It could be construed like that, but without it, what's the first thing to go? Anytime you're looking at budgets, what is the first thing to go? Arts and culture, because it's considered a nice to have. The fact that there's a huge economic value to it, massive economic value, billions in GVA, that's gross value add in this country. It comes from the creative industries. This idea that it doesn't make money, but you have to start somewhere. You have to teach people how to be creative, right? It's in there, but you have to get it out. So this is my thing, that if the lottery weren't there, we could be a bit of a cultural desert, because you've got to find the funding from somewhere. And if it's national government, they're going to say, well, we'd love to help, but we've got people to fix. We've got this, you know what I mean? So the lottery really did make that stopgap, if you want.
I heard a local politician, I think it was Steve Pitt, articulate that in really well, but even take it further.
He's better than me, Steve. Steve's lovely.
The idea of there's the STEM disciplines that everyone focuses on in school, and adding the A in arts into STEM. And he made the really good argument that actually it's creative thinking and creativity that leads to innovation in other industries. For example, a guy who's Oh, I think I went to a jazz, amazing jazz in London, and there's a guy, and he's a surgeon by day and a saxophonist by night.
Yeah.
And you would think those two things would be mutually exclusive, but no, they come together and into an individual. And I think as a society, that's proven as well.
Yeah, and we don't. There's a couple of things about one. As a software developer, I used to write code the same way I would write a song, and in my head, in terms of the feeling, it's the same. Right? It's no different. It's creative. So there's definitely it's transferable. I think the idea is creativity is transferable. The other bit you got to realize is without creativity, I can't think of anywhere I could sit in the world where I don't look around and something's creative. The tech. Yeah, what you're wearing, your glasses.
For listeners, Charlie is pointing around the studio.
Right, so I'm pointing at basically everything that's got a shape or a form or everything it comes from somebody sitting down with a creative idea. I remember there was somebody, I can't remember Radio 4, I'm a big Radio 4 person, and she was saying about, what was it? Science, engineering was being creative with science. Perfect, right. So
it reminds me of one of my favourite and inspirational podcasts, 99% Invisible, which is made in America.
Yeah.
And it's about that everyday design, architecture, things like that.
That's creativity.
It's 99% invisible, though. You don't. It's like the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
You see that thing, but you don't see all the work.
How do you develop creativity? That's where the arts come in. So the arts is the only creative thing. Is if you look at the arts, it's painting. If people didn't. I always said this, that if people didn't, what was it? I've forgotten now, right? But it was something along, thinking if they had nothing else to do with the arts, people weren't creative with it. They would just paint and draw, right, and sing. These are the fundamental building blocks of creativity, or the arts. It's what we do with that learning later on. Problem solving. Great thing with the arts, if you think whether it be what you're doing right now today, I would suggest is very creative and very artistic. The amount of problems we've had in the last couple of hours, you fix them, right? And you can transfer that to whatever you do later on. But creativity is, the arts are the DNA of creativity, and creativity is a thing that makes humans different from everybody else.
That is a barrier that I have encountered and have trying to overcome, is actually seeing myself as an artist or as a creative person. Yeah. Because people think of the arts, they think of that painting.
Yeah, painting and drawing and singing and dancing and it's fine. That's what we do when we don't do anything else with it. But if we can apply what we've learned through doing that stuff, that's where creativity comes in. And I'm not a big fan of the word, I'm a creative. You'll find that everywhere. People saying creatives, and I use it as well because it seems to be part of the vocabulary right now, is that people use the word creative. But everybody's creative. Anybody, a carpenter's creative, a plumber's creative, a software developer's creative, a bus driver's creative. Everybody is creative. So I think it's really important that we don't put it into a little, look how cool we are because we're creative type of box, and everyone else, you're nothing, right?
Right.
Yeah, so you've got to make creativities, everybody's got it. And I think sometimes, this is quite controversial, but that division that we make causes a little bit of animosity. If you go down that route of, I'm an artist, I'm a creative, you're not.
Right.
And I think that can itself cause,
it's not inclusive.
No, it's not inclusive. Whereas everyone can sing, everyone can dance, everyone can draw. You might be shit at it, but you can do it. Right.
Language.
Yeah, sorry. But you know what I mean? And it's that I think we need to embrace creativity, because from a serious point of view, from an economic point of view, it's what... I'll give you a great example, right? In the noughties, early noughties, because I'm a big software fan, and software development, we didn't jump... I remember in 2005 when I became a school teacher. Don't ask, another story.
That's a different story.
That's a different story. But I noticed, I went into the schools, and when their IT was teaching PowerPoint, and that was about it, and a bit of Excel, but not much. Meanwhile, in India, they're teaching software, right? And it was almost like they went, we get this, right? And it's a really creative process, software development. It's really creative. And I just thought we totally missed the trick. And that was them embracing creativity, saying, right, this is a creative process. We're going to now look at the economic value that made by them having some of the best software developers in the world, right? And if I wanted to get a piece, an app created, I'd go there because they're better software developers. The point being that it's a creative process. Somebody invested in that creativity. And I think we miss, that's one of the things that we miss. What we're really good at in this country is music. What we're really, really good at in this country is music, and it brings in economic value. It also brings in people who produce, who run events, the festival culture in Britain's biggest in the world. You know what I mean? This idea that creativity and the arts have got no bearing on the economy is false. But we need to push it. We need to talk about the value, the economic value and the value this makes. People not being ill because they're engaging and they get better well-being. So
let's do that now. Let's bring it down to that personal level. Let's talk to our audience in Gosport. There are people in Gosport probably thinking, oh, I can hear Charlie and it's all right for him to say it because he's that artist, he's that experience. I don't know where to start. We've already flagged up getting involved in things, looking up Culture Connects, but then we were looking onto funding streams and things like that. I guess what's the advice to people there is, as it applies to what you're doing. So you're writing a bid at the moment to develop
an idea. Hence why it's not a huge bid. It's how much time do you need to develop?
I suppose we need to put that in context. What would you say is a huge bid?
Well, it depends. When I was running my charity, we were easily applying for £75,000-100,000 to keep the charity going, and all the different strands that came out of that. Something like this, I mean, I'm not going to, I don't know yet, but it's my time, essentially, is my time. It's workshops, it's having the time to develop a concept. And as I say, there was, for example, there was an Arts Council, R&D, which you probably know about. There was an research and development fund.
I've actually applied, and I am awaiting a decision.
Anyway, and that is for individuals to basically just cook up, nurture ideas, have a look at what's going to happen. That's something that's been missing, I think, in the arts. How do you earn money when you're trying to cook up an idea?
They do have a thing called develop your creative practice.
Yes. Again, that's another thing, but this sounds conceited. I don't need to develop my creative practice. I've been doing it for like 40 years. So that's not why I have the skills around to do what I need to do. But what can be hard and sometimes is, what is your next project? Is it needed? That's the other bit. It needs to be needed. There needs to be a reason for doing it. There needs to be a legacy. You need to be wanting to make some sort of change. It
has to have a genuine impact.
It has to have a genuine impact, and you need to make some sort of change. That's what you're trying to do.
And for context, I know, because I think I know from my own research, you're talking about a project grant to the Arts Council's project fund. No, but that, just in context, that's up to £30,000.
£30,000.
But if you were going in, if I were to just go in now and ask for £30,000,
so there's
they're going to. I'm very unlikely to get accepted.
There's a track record. You need to. It's like anything. When you start in a job, if you don't start at KFC and they make you a manager the next day, right? They might do with some people, but you know what I mean. They don't. They don't. My partner's son works in KFC. He's been there a few years, doing really well. But you start where you start, right? And it's proving that what you can do works, and that you're somebody that's worth investing and entrusting in. Right? Trust is a huge thing, particularly when you're playing with public money. So you have to build up.
Is it public money, lottery money?
Yeah, of course it is.
Okay.
Because right, here's a little thing that I did a Gosport ambassadors meeting about a year ago, well, maybe a bit longer than that. And I was Gosport ambassadors are a group of people who have an interest in Gosport in terms of culturally, economically. So you get people from the council, you get educational people, you get freelance creatives, we're all there on the chat. We did one the other week, but I was at this thing and I was talking about the board game that we were developing. And somebody wanted to know why we did it, right? And we'd done there'd been consultation prior to me being imposed, saying that this is something that people wanted. So, but anyway, I sort of said, okay, so Hands up, anyone in this audience who regularly does the lottery. How many people?
How many people put their hands up? Ooh, that's interesting. Maybe half of them?
Two.
Two out of a room of...
Probably 50.
Wow, so... Yeah.
Point being, we're not the ones playing the lottery. I don't play the lottery. I'm asking you, do you play the lottery?
No.
Regularly?
No.
Yeah.
Occasionally.
Yet, we're taking that public funding. These people are playing the lottery, and that money goes to us to do lovely arts and cultural things. We need to make sure that what we do is relevant to the people who are, and that was the bit that got me, just in general. So as I say, public money, it is public money. People are, well, you call it gambling or not, but people are playing the lottery. That money is going into lots of Sport England as well. You know, it's going everywhere, but you need to be aware that that's public money. So you have a responsibility to the public to make sure that what you do is relevant. It's not tokenistic. It's not wasting money. It has value for money. It has legacy.
So this is what you're doing at the moment for your project, is you're working out the answers to those questions.
Yes.
How can I involve more people? So that when people ask you, you can say it's for this reason, and you can,
yes.
and you have evidence to prove it.
I can evidence say this is needed, and it doesn't mean you say the whole of Gosport want to have a samba in control. You know, I've got 50 musicians. Plus, if I then engaged some of the other cultural groups and organisations and stuff around Gosport, if I had 500 people that wanted to get involved in that, that's good. So I'm not saying that how many thousands of people in the town need to, you know, when you're doing an idea, you don't have to have complete approval by everybody, but it has to be supported enough that it's worth doing. Otherwise, it becomes a vanity project. Otherwise, it becomes, this is about me trying to promote myself. And if you know me, I hate promoting myself. It's about the community. So what I'm trying to do is, how do I take what we did with Big Noise Samba over the last 20 years to the next level, so that in 20 years' time, when I'm not about, it's still about. And there's a thing that's happening in Gosport around, whether it be carnival, around collaboration of musicians and artists and stuff. I don't know, but I want something that has legacy.
There's an analogy I love. It's the planting of trees that you know you're never going to be able to sit under the shade of.
Well, you know the name of my organisation?
No? Tell me.
Appleseed Arts.
Appleseed Arts.
Yeah, and I came up with that. There's a guy called Johnny Appleseed, which a lot of people don't know about. Although
it's a very American story, isn't it?
Johnny Appleseed was very quickly, he was born around about the time of the Revolution, so 1776, the American England. We had nothing to do with it. The American
independence.
The War of Independence, that one. And Johnny Appleseed, John Chapman, he was a very religious man, but basically the story is that he was a bit weird, that's what they say, and he walked around with a tin can in his head, a sort of tin pot in his head.
And it'd be tin foil these days.
And if you see the photos of him, he walked around bare feet and stuff like that. But actually, John Chapman was a proper entrepreneur, and he used to basically, while the Midwest was expanding, he would go just ahead of where the settlers were, and he would start creating, or he would plant orchards. As the settlers came up, he would tell them how to do the husbandry, look after the orchards, so that they would grow, so they could make cider. That was the main thing. It wasn't for selling the apples for eating, but it was cider. And his idea was that he would say, you look after this plot, I'll come back once every couple of years, and what I'll do is I'll take your fee, I'll take some money. Never bothered. Just went around doing this. He was so entrepreneurial and a really nice, he was very religious. So
the original social entrepreneur.
Proper social entrepreneur, vegan, stuff like that. But the idea of from Little Seeds Apple, and I just loved, when I read about Johnny Appleseed, I thought that completely works for me. It's about passing on knowledge, expertise, skills, so that other people can get on with it, and you don't have to do it to a certain extent. That's the way I've always been. If I can, it's teach a person to fish rather than giving him a fish. And I've always had that attitude since I was a kid. I just and I also love teaching. So Appleseed is about that. How can I pass on all this stuff before I go away? Right.
And I guess there's a question here is, for me and from me, but also on behalf of the audience, is there a way, is there anything you want us to take from this in terms of helping you, or, getting involved in that endeavour? Is it because I think we're clear on what your project is, but people listening, they might say, either they want to get, hopefully we're inspiring them to do their own things. But is there anything you want to share in this opportunity?
In terms of communication, it is the hardest thing. Is you reach out to people and get back to us, please. So I have an email address, which is, and I'm sure it'll get put up somewhere in the podcast, the comments or whatever, but it's info@appleseedarts, all one word, .co.uk. If you're I don't care what you are creatively, if you're any organisation that would like to basically just have a chat about how we can develop this idea with samba as a thread. That's it, and it's a very simple thread. It doesn't have to be, the core part, but there needs to be a thread going through, not just samba the music, but samba the ethos, the community aspect of it, all that sort of stuff. But if you're interested, give me a shout. We're well up for a collab. I don't care what it is, And I'm seeing this.
What kind of people are you talking about?
Musicians,
Let's be specific.
ensembles, dance groups, street dance. That would be quite cool. Visual artists. Do you know what I mean? If we're gonna do a thing, could we then, like street art? There was a great thing at Leeson Park the other day, the Urban Arts Festival. Spray art and stuff like that's becoming really popular. Anything that, and it doesn't matter how silly it might sound to you, or just fling it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But it's that thing, just keep flinging stuff on the wall until something sticks. That's how that's how creativity works.
You're looking for people to collaborate with on this event. Planning is going.
Doing workshops, doing testing out, experimenting some ideas. If you've got this sort of crazy collab idea, for example, bagpipes and samba, right? Who would have come up with that? And I just thought that'll work, and it did. So it's that. I want that attitude. That might work, right? If you want to check out Big Noise Community Samba Band, just Google or put in YouTube Big Noise Community Samba Band. You'll get to hear the style of music, and then if that inspires you, I'm looking for like Afro-Brazilian dancing, because it's a very Afro-Brazilian music. So, is there any sort of cultural connections we can make there? But it is really, just. You
mentioned earlier on in the podcast, you talked about venues as well.
Yeah.
So you're looking for places.
Depending on what the idea is. So if it's an encontro, that would be a big space that I would require, because people stay for the weekend.
But you've mentioned workshops as well.
But if it's workshops, the workshops, so there's two workshops. There's the workshops at the start, the experimental consultation period, if you want, where you're trying things out. So I might do it myself. I might go along to hear a band and go, right, how could we incorporate samba drumming into that? Or they might come to us and we go, this is a samba band, what do you think? The DJ thing, that sort of idea. Then secondly, next year, as we go into the event, that's where the workshops would be specifically for the event. I'm a big fan of mass participation.
So you want the people of Gosport participating in this event?
Yeah,
September next year.
Yeah, exactly. And there's no reason why you can have, on the same day, you can have an event, say, for example, in Key West, which is the show, if you want. But in the afternoon, we're all up broadcast, 500 of us, hitting a bunch of drum. That could work too. How do we use the spaces? And it's got to be exciting and fun and dynamic, and people want to.
It's one thing I loved about the genesis of the idea of the Shanty Festival that sits alongside Gosport Marine Festival. I think it's 8 venues now.
Yeah.
So some of them are at the festival, some are not. And some they're just around Gosport. Yeah. And this gives 22 ensembles, bands, groups, whatever you call, the opportunity to come, and they do, instead of doing just one gig, they can do 3 or 4 in a day across the venues.
And that's essentially, if you go to an encontro, that's what happens. Okay. Samba bands just move around the town.
An encontro is this samba thing.
An encontro is specific to samba. So that's a meeting of. I went to one in Bristol the other week. That's a meeting of samba bands, and
so you. Wow.
Yeah. So you get people who perform. So certain bands will perform separately, but also there's this. You'll just go out and stand in the street with a samba band. Obviously, it's got to be booked and stuff, and they all jam.
So that's a potential for what you're saying next September. But you also used a different term as well. Barrio, was it?
But no, it's a banda show. So BANDA. band a show. It's a show. It's a showcase of.
It's like a carnival.
You call it carnival inside, right? Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. You know, it's got a multi-art form. It's multi-art form. It's not just music, you know. And I'm very keen to try and merge drumming and percussion with instruments and, as I say, DJ. This idea of having decks and.
Oh, I'm inspired. You're inspiring me just now, Charlie.
Well, hopefully,
you know what? Why do you have to choose between the two? Why can't you do both?
Well, mate. Well, this is the whole point of the consultation. Right. Is let's find out what's going to work, and I need to have, in terms of, I need to have that decided by December at the latest, so that I can then go for the next stage of making it happen. Big Noise are having a 20th anniversary. We are going to do something. How big it's going to be is a different matter. That's his hope. So the project is a little bit of a lot of research and testing, and it's the right thing to do because nobody else comes up with new ideas without testing them and researching them. You know what I mean? So why shouldn't arts and I nearly said creatives? Why shouldn't people who want to do creative things be allowed to test things out without worrying about essentially where you're going to pay your next bill? You know what I mean?
Relate to that. I can relate to that. That's definitely the journey that I'm on here at the media space.
Exactly.
So, for my part, it's the same invitation here at the media space, which is this called a media hub. I could have just called it the media hub, but I think the word hub has been massively
overused a lot. Yeah.
So I called it the media space, but it is a media hub. So the idea here is it's a place where people can come together, involved in, who are interested in learning skills and collaborating on projects such as this one, as the first project. Come down and get involved and push the envelope and learn some things. I'm learning so much, and I just want to give a big thank you to all those people who have helped me on my journey so far, particularly Gosport Borough Council, for the councillors there, for giving me the funding to put together this project, but also the individuals who've either given their time, including you, Charlie, who've given their time, resources, advice and equipment. You know, this amazing set that if you're watching on video, you can see was built by a Gosport person in Gosport, you know, out, and he didn't charge me anything for his time. And so big thank you there to Paul for doing that. But I just want to get that message out there, the gratitude and that thing about collaboration. And so I really wish you the best with that project, Charlie.
Thank you.
And I hope I speak for everyone in the audience that we really look forward to it and cheering you on. And we look forward to seeing it. We said get in touch through Appleseed Arts. We've highlighted Culture Connects as a great way of.
By the way, Appleseed Arts hasn't got a website yet. This is a weird thing. I design websites, but you never do your own, do you? So I'm working on it.
I am. You know what? I am literally the same. I put like a temporary website up for Media Space.
Yeah, a little holding page.
And you just made me think, oh my goodness, I haven't updated that. And it's so hard to take your own advice. I update Big Noise's website all the time. I look after it. I maintain it. I do all the design and stuff like that now, and I don't do my own. It's just one of them things. But yeah. There will be a website at some point, but I'll probably commission somebody else to do it. Well, if you need help with the social media or content generation, you know where we are. And I hope that regardless of whether, I want to say that the Gosport Stories project, funded by Gosport Borough Council, we're going to deliver as many episodes as we can in the time frame that we've got. But I do want to appeal out there that if you enjoy this conversation, you want more of it, please do share, please do review on whatever platform, leave a comment or review the podcast on whatever platform you're listening or watching on, because that will really help us prove that there's a need, as Charlie has just been sharing with us. Charlie has been sharing us that you need to prove this need in order to grow and get better funding. I would really love to be in a place where Gosport Stories could carry on. But it would need either a sponsor or further support. And also there's a shout out there for it. If you have ideas, you have a Gosport story yourself, or you want to be involved in coming down and helping to record these Gosport stories. I have hosted this one. But my original vision for the Gosport stories, because of the same reason that Charlie just shared with us, I don't want it to be all about me, is that I can now hand over the mantle of host to people as they come. So this is an invitation to you, Charlie, to host a future episode of Gosport stories. So if you want to listen to or watch Charlie in conversation, but as host, and I think we've already got some ideas, but we don't want to overpromise at this point. So if you want to come back and listen to Charlie be in this seat, having a conversation with someone else with a really interesting Gosport story to tell, please do follow, like, subscribe, so that you can see that in the future. Please do get in touch. Follow the Media Space Gosport on socials for news of how to get involved. And that's I think that's a good sign off.
That sounds like a good sign off to me.
Anything else you want to add, Charlie?
Oh, don't do that. No, it's fine. Yeah. I've really enjoyed. It's been thoroughly enjoyable to just sit here and talk, which is really, you don't get a chance to do it. And I do appreciate being allowed to talk about stuff which I'm really passionate about. But you don't always get the forum to do it unless you're in a pub and you're having a chat with somebody or something. But to actually, done the mic thing again. But to actually talk about stuff that I'm really passionate about, which hopefully other people will listen to, I'm happy. It was great fun. So thank you.
I think I'm really passionate about stories and storytelling, and I just want to say that thank you for your stories. And I also want to say to the audience that the Gosport stories isn't all going to be about arts and culture.
No,
we're planning episodes about much wider stories to really set the scene for what Gosport's all about. So see you on a future episode of Gosport Stories, or indeed another Media Space podcast. Goodbye for now. Thank you.